An obsession is supposed to be harmless, but for these people, it became a hunger that turned on their own bodies.
One more bite, because I can't stop eating it.
From a woman who drinks human blood warm from the vein,
Blood is as important as water to me.
to one who eats her dead husband's ashes,
I'm eating my husband.
these 10 obsessions are so disturbing, they force one impossible question. How does a human mind end up here? Number 10. For most people, the smell of raw meat left out too long is enough to turn the stomach. For Wendy, it's the smell of breakfast. She walks straight past the stove without a glance, opens the fridge, and tears into a cold, uncooked slab with her bare hands, swallowing as much as 2 pounds of raw flesh before the day is over. The slick texture and the faint copper tang of blood aren't something she has to push through. They're the entire reason she does it.
This is raw hamburger meat, and I'm addicted to eating raw meat.
Her fiancé's family has learned to look away at the dinner table. They've watched the raw fibers pull apart between her teeth, watched the pink smear left behind on her fingers and her lips, and they've stopped pretending it's a phase. What frightens them most isn't the sight of it, it's that Wendy is genuinely baffled by their concern, as though the rest of the world is the strange one for bothering to cook. The body, though, keeps no secrets about what it can and cannot survive. Raw meat is a breeding ground for Salmonella, E. coli, Listeria, and tapeworm larvae that can hatch inside the gut, burrow through the intestinal wall, and in the worst cases, travel all the way to the brain. Every uncooked bite is a quiet gamble, and she takes that gamble 3 times a day, with a composure that unnerves the people who love her far more than the meat itself. And that composure is the disturbing part. She has heard every warning. She has watched her family beg. Still, she reaches back into the fridge because the craving stopped asking her permission a long time ago. And somewhere along the way, the cold weight of raw meat in her hands started to feel less like a habit and more like an appetite she's no longer steering. Number 9. Michelle keeps a supply of pig blood in her fridge, bought cheap from a local market, but that's only a substitute. A way to take the edge off until the real craving hits. What the 29-year-old tattoo artist actually wants is human blood, warm and fresh,
I drink human blood as much as I can.
drawn straight from a vein while it's still at body temperature. It didn't begin as some gothic performance. It began in a dark chapter of her teenage years when she was hurting herself. And one day, out of nothing more than curiosity, she tasted her own blood. The self-harm eventually stopped. The taste never let go. It grew into a permanent appetite she now spends her life quietly feeding. What makes it so unnerving is how carefully she manages it. The blood has to come from someone she trusts completely, a best friend, a partner, a lover, never a stranger, and she has favorite places to draw from. The upper arm, the soft inside of the elbow, the upper back, the inner thigh.
It's either got to be the upper arm, it's got to be in the elbow area, or upper back, inner thigh.
The one spot she refuses is the neck, and not for safety. She just finds drinking from someone's throat too cliche, which means there are people in her life who love her enough to roll up a sleeve, open a vein, and let her drink while it's warm. A doctor walked her through the consequences on camera: hepatitis, HIV, an entire menu of bloodborne disease that doesn't care in the slightest how much she trusts the person bleeding for her. Michelle listened, nodded politely, and made it perfectly clear she has no intention of ever stopping. The pig blood, she'll tell you, is just the methadone. The real thing always has a pulse. Number 8. Mike and Trina refuse to actually drink their coffee. They say it's far too harsh on the stomach, which becomes a very dark joke the moment you learn what they do with it instead. Between 4 and 10 times a day, this Florida couple brews a fresh pot of strong espresso, lets it cool, and then flushes it through their bodies instead of drinking it. He takes his cold and strong. She prefers hers warm and finely ground.
I like to take it into the bathroom warmer than body temperature.
In just 2.5 years, they got through close to 7,000 of these, between them roughly 100 each, every month, with Trina once managing 9 or 10 in a single day. The whole routine eats up about 5 hours of daily life, possible only because they both work from home, never far from a bathroom. The house has taken on the permanent smell of stale coffee, and visitors have quietly learned not to ask too many questions. To Trina, the feeling is pure euphoria. She says it made her feel like she was living for the first time in years. Mike was put off the very first time he watched her do it, tried it once out of curiosity, and was hooked on the spot. His only piece of advice, delivered completely deadpan, is that once it's done, you'll want to be very close to a bathroom. Doctors are far less impressed. Done this often, the habit can leave the body dangerously drained, irritate and damage the system from the inside, and over time, make it harder for the body to do its job on its own. When Trina once tried to stop, she ended up in the emergency room. These two stopped brewing their morning coffee a long time ago. Now, their morning coffee brews them. Number 7. In Pat and Joe's home, you will be met by the unblinking stare of 5,000 small plastic faces, each one named, dressed, according to the couple who raised them, alive. Whatever you do, don't call them dolls.
Dolls is not a word that we use. You call them kids or babies.
In this house, that word is forbidden. Somewhere across nearly 4 decades of collecting Cabbage Patch Kids, something in Pat and Joe came loose, and the line between toy and child dissolved completely. They greet the dolls every morning and ask whether they behaved overnight. They tuck them in and promise to see them at sunrise. They speak to molded vinyl with the worn, tender exhaustion of parents who have never once had a night off. What tips devotion into something genuinely frightening is the scale. 5,000 to 6,000 dolls, housed in their own climate-controlled buildings that cost more than $200,000 to construct, running up a power bill north of $1,000 a month because the children mustn't get too warm. All told, the couple has poured over $1 million into a family that cannot move or speak, while Pat and Joe themselves live in a cramped trailer bolted to the side of the warehouse where the dolls sleep in comfort. And then there's their real daughter, Olivia, sitting in the middle of all of it, gently trying to remind her parents which of their children actually has a pulse. They've named one favorite doll Kevin, and they introduce him as her brother. Kevin, she says, with the weariness of someone who has corrected them 1,000 times, is not my brother. She is outnumbered 5,000 to 1. In a home where the two people who raised her can no longer quite tell the difference between a child and a collection, and where the dolls, somehow, sleep in better conditions than she ever did. Number 6. Most people hear glass shatter and instinctively step back. Josh leans toward it. Over 4 years, this 27-year-old comedian has chewed his way through more than 100 wine glasses and 250 light bulbs, biting down on jagged shards and describing the feeling as warm and tingly.
Just get like a warm feeling, kind of get a little bit tingly.
Like horrendously sharp rock candy ground to a paste between his molars. When glass stops getting a strong enough reaction, he escalates to live ammunition, swallowing up to 30 bullets in a single sitting, grinning through bloodied teeth while the room recoils. Because the truth buried under this addiction was never really about glass at all. It's about the gasp. Josh is hooked on the horror that floods a stranger's face, the silence that drops over a room, every eye locked on him in disbelief. He's feeding on the attention, and the glass is just the cost of admission. The one paying the real price is his fiancée, Natalie. She first assumed the whole act was a clever stage trick, until the split lips, the bleeding gums, and the slivers of glass lodged in his mouth made it impossible to ignore. Medically, every swallow is a loaded chamber. A shard that isn't ground down perfectly can drift through the digestive tract and tear open the esophagus or the intestines, opening the door to internal bleed and sepsis, while the lead in the bullets poisons him on the side. As Natalie puts it, you don't realize you're having a heart attack until it's already happening. Josh won't know his insides are shredded until it's far too late. And yet the second a crowd gathers around him, his hand is already moving toward the nearest glass. Number 5. Casey was 26 when her husband, Sean, died with no warning at all. a massive asthma attack that took him from her in a matter of minutes. The grief didn't simply break her. It reshaped who she was. At first, it wore the face of devotion. She carried his urn with her everywhere. She cooked his favorite meals every evening and laid a place for the ashes at the table, asking them which channel they should watch together. Heartbreaking, yes, but still recognizable as love. The line vanished entirely the day she moved his remains into a new urn, and a little of the fine gray dust spilled across her fingers. She couldn't bring herself to wipe him away, so she licked him off her hand instead. And in that single moment, something opened that has never since closed.
My name is Casey. I'm 26 years old. I'm from Fayetteville, Tennessee, and I'm addicted to carrying around my husband's urn.
From that day on, Casey has been unable to stop dipping her fingers into the urn for a taste of her husband. She describes it without flinching, and she keeps going anyway, because the only other option is letting him go, and she refuses. By the time the cameras arrived, she had eaten nearly a full pound of the 6 that remained of him, and her deepest fear was never her own health. It was the day she finally runs out of him. Doctors warned that cremated remains carry chemicals never meant to enter a living body, the kind that can push an already fracturing mind closer to the edge. Mercifully, her story ends with Casey checking herself into a mental health facility. It earns the top spot, not because it's the most disgusting thing on this list, but because it's the most human. Strip away the horror, and what's left is a woman who loved a man so completely that rather than say goodbye, she tried to keep him the only way her grief would let her by carrying him inside her body, one taste at a time. Number 4. Keisha from Queens. And her addiction is the contents of other people's used diapers. A clean one is worthless to her. Everything she's chasing lives in the waste itself. She hunts specifically for urine, and she's disturbingly matter-of-fact about it. The heavier and more soaked the diaper, the better. Because the sharp hit of ammonia gives her a rush she swears she can't find anywhere else. She sniffs them, she hoards them, and then impossibly she chews them, describing the taste.
I love sniffing and chewing dirty diapers.
Without so much as a flinch, as sour candy. Her whole life has been swallowed by it. By her own count, she has stockpiled more than 25,000 used diapers, hidden in kitchen drawers, stuffed into her pockets, packed into the trunk of her car, slipped under her pillow so they're within reach while she sleeps. She carries them in her handbag like snacks. Her fiancé keeps finding what he calls surprises wedged into the furniture. And then comes the detail from her friend Kim, a mother of twins. Keisha will wake sleeping babies in the night just to peel the warm, wet diaper off them. And the part that drags this from disgusting into genuinely disturbing, she was pregnant through the worst of it. While her own body was meant to be the safest place on earth for a growing child, she was gathering strangers' waste and putting it in her mouth, completely unbothered, calling the whole thing comfort and joy. Number 3. Every night the rest of us climb into bed to sleep, Jennifer climbs in to eat. She was just 6 years old when the craving started, and 20 years later, she has devoured 8 entire mattresses, beginning with her own.
My name is Jennifer, and I'm addicted to eating mattresses.
And when there was no foam left to tear out of it, moving on to her mother's. Her routine never changes. She peels back the cover, carves out a chunk of memory foam, and chews it like a strip of jerky plain, exactly the way she likes it. For nearly 2 decades, she convinced herself it was harmless, that the foam slid through her body and came out the other side intact, that the worst it ever did was leave her a little gassy. Then, her family stopped accepting the excuses. Her mother and brother sat her down, begged her to see a specialist, and she finally agreed to an X-ray. The gastroenterologist took one look at the image and went pale. Her stomach wasn't passing the foam at all, it was packed solid with it. Years of swallowed mattress compressed into a single mass that food could no longer get past. So the meals she ate were piling up on top of it, fermenting, rotting inside her, rising back up her throat, as sulfur burps she described as a fart in her mouth. Number 2. The cupboard in Mary's kitchen isn't stocked with food for her 3 cats. It's stocked for her. Bag after bag of cat treats piled to the top, because at 48, this woman from Michigan has been quietly living on pet food for years. The question that haunts everyone who hears her story is how a grown adult ever arrives here, and the answer turns out to be sadder than the habit. It started in the loneliest stretch of her life, when a brutal divorce left her alone in a quiet house with no company but her cats. One evening, she slipped a treat into her own mouth, and something about the crunch and the silence made the loneliness a little easier to carry. A million treats later, she eats around 900 a day, often sitting beside her oldest cat and sharing the bag with a soft automatic one for you and one for Mama. She loves the crunch. She swears the treats burst with flavor, and when they aren't enough, she cracks open the cans of wet food and eats that too, telling herself it tastes like chicken soup. Close to 1,500 pounds of pet food vanishing into her body every single year. Then, the doctor spells out what she's actually been surviving on. Cat food is built from rendered byproducts, scraps, and chemical additives designed for an animal's stomach, several of them flagged as carcinogenic. Her own blood is already sounding the alarm, with early anemia and the first creak of failing kidneys. Her brother calls it gross to her face. And through all of it, Mary just keeps stroking her cat, reaching for one more treat, murmuring the only words that ever seem to calm her. One for you, and one for Mama. Number 1. Every can of Comet Cleanser carries the same blunt warning down the side. Harmful if swallowed. Do not ingest. Crystal has read those words more times than she could ever count, usually with the can already tipped to her lips and the gritty powder already coating her tongue. For more than 30 years, she has eaten Scouring Cleanser like a snack, up to 10 times a day, scooping the bleach and grit out by the fingerful and licking it clean. She was 12 when it began, and she was also, at 12, a child surviving abuse. Somewhere in the middle of that, the powder under the kitchen sink became the one thing in her world that felt safe. First, she loved the smell, then the grit, and eventually she came to love the burn, the chemical sting tearing down her throat that to her felt like proof she was still alive. 3 decades of that have done exactly what you'd fear. Her own dentist could only describe the inside of her mouth as a war zone. Gums infected and shrinking back, teeth rotting and crumbling from within, dissolved by the very compounds made to strip filth off bathroom tile. She has long since stopped tasting it the way a stranger would. The harsh, soapy bite of bleach registers to her as something close to comfort. Doctors warn that swallowing it long enough can corrode the throat, scar the entire digestive tract, and end in fatal internal poisoning. The hardest moment to sit through doesn't come from a doctor at all. It comes from her teenage daughter, standing on the porch, begging her mother to put the can down. And Crystal answers with something that freezes the room. She quietly admits that the eating might be a slow way of destroying herself on purpose. She knows exactly what it's doing to her. She simply isn't ready to stop. So here's the question I still can't answer, and I want yours. Which of these is going to follow you to bed tonight? And if you were somehow forced to live with one of them for the rest of your life, which could you survive, and which would quietly destroy you? Tell me in the comments. And if this pulled you all the way to the end, subscribe, because the next list goes somewhere even darker.